Hey everyone, Tom the Dilettante here. Hope you're all doing well, and thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to be talking about how I tackled the challenge of getting radio communications set up on my motorcycle to go through my helmet. Now, my setup is probably a bit unique in that it was crafted mostly around the gear I already had. I'm sure there are a lot of different ways to make this work. This is simply what I ended up doing. My radio is a Yaesu FT5D mounted to its factory clip, but slightly modified to accommodate a ram ball and mount. It connects via Bluetooth to a Sena 50S mesh intercom headset mounted to my Climb Krios Pro helmet. And to interact with the radio, I'm using a hacked up $20 push-to-talk earpiece from Amazon, mounted near my clutch hand with either 3M double-sided tape or Velcro. If you're wondering if this setup is up to the task of motorcycle riding, let's just say it survived a trip from Chicago to Colorado and back, over thousands of miles of blacktop and 100 or so miles of dirt road. It not only survived, but performed admirably. Well, at least as well as a HT with a rubber duck antenna can be expected to perform. Let's break down the setup. I chose the Yaesu FT5D because of its rugged, shock-resistance construction and IPX7 waterproof rating. Equally important, it has Bluetooth, which was needed to connect it to my helmet comms. Setting this up was easier than I expected, simply setting them up to discover each other like you would any other Bluetooth device. Lastly, its factory mount was easy to adapt to a 1-inch ram ball. I just cut down the back of an aluminum ram ball, drilled and tapped the holes to match the factory bracket, and the whole thing secured together nicely. This made it simple to clip into place on the handlebar and convenient for pulling off to use around the camp, to take on a hike, or simply so it just doesn't get jacked. Having an extra clip made it even better for switching from one setup to another. For the push-to-talk button, I think it was dumb luck that I got this to work. I started with this $21 Amazon in-ear headset and push-to-talk unit. Of course, I didn't need or want the earpiece and mic, and I discovered just by cutting wires that you can chop off everything after the push-to-talk button, and the button still works with the radio. A little bit of silicone and JB weld later, I had a push-to-talk button that I could mount anywhere at my discretion. Now, on my GS Adventure, there's a lot of shit going on around the grips, so it was hard to find a good location to mount the switch. I settled on mounting it to the controller for my Inov K5 dash cam. And while I needed to shift my grip a bit to hit it, it wasn't so bad as to make me feel like I was at risk of losing control of the bike. Finally, the helmet setup. I use a Climb Krios Pro helmet with a Sena 50S mesh intercom headset. The earpieces are tucked inside the liner next to each ear, and the mic is secured inside by the chin with double-sided tape. This little boom mic is a separate mic I use for motovlogging and plugs into a chin-mounted GoPro. Alright, time for a demonstration. Let's see how all this stuff works together. First, I'll demonstrate transmitting from the bike, and for my receiving radio, I'll be using this Yaesu FT70D, and will be operating on a 2-meter simplex frequency of 146.445. Now remember, from the bike, I'm using a jerry-rigged push-to-talk button to transmit from my handlebar-mounted FT5, which is connected via Bluetooth to my helmet-mounted Sena 50S intercom system. N9 JDI testing, 1, 2. 1, 2 from Motorcycle Mobile, testing N9 JDI. Alright, that's what it's like to transmit from the bike. But what about receiving and what it's like inside the helmet? The best way I can think of to simulate this for you is to place a lav mic inside the helmet next to the earpiece. This time we'll be transmitting from the FT70 and receiving from the bike-mounted FT5. Alright, just moving outside so I don't get any ambient noise issues. Let's test it out. N9 JDI testing. N9 JDI testing. Transmitting FT70 to FT5 to test motorcycle mobile comms. Receiving end. N9 JDI clear. Alright, as you can see, or rather hear, reception ain't that bad. It sounds pretty good. Now, if you're wondering what about road noise and engine noise when you're actually at speed on the bike, I can assure you it's actually pretty good as well. I was going down Highway 285 at around 65 miles per hour in Colorado and yakking away with a buddy of mine on a 45-minute trip down to a trailhead. Now you might be thinking, but Tom, what about the more common GMRS radio service? And in short, I don't know. I don't have a GMRS radio with Bluetooth that I can connect to in this manner. And you're right to ask. After all, radios are type certified for the service in which they're intended to operate. My FT70 and FT5 are certified for amateur radio service. And it would be irresponsible of me to tell you that by removing a single resistor on this radio, you can perform what's called a Mars cap mod and actually open this thing up to transmit on GMRS frequencies. So yeah, that would be irresponsible. Don't do that. Anyway, while I'm happy with this setup, it's not without its drawbacks. Here are a few for your consideration. Drawback number 1. Having speakers right next to your ear and both of your hands occupied leaves you susceptible to having the shit scared out of you if a braking station comes through with their mic gain set too high. The same can be said for interference or static from weak signals breaking through. Now, for the latter, you can just keep your squelch turned up high. For For the former, just make sure you know how to turn down or mute your headset in a hurry. And if you're the kind of person who can't quite maintain their composure and maintain good control of the motorcycle if you're suddenly startled with a loud noise, then this solution might not be for you. The second drawback is that range is limited. This is, after all, just a 5-watt handheld with a stock rubber duck antenna. Now, I thought about maybe running a whip antenna in the back and some coax along the frame and a BNC connector up to the radio itself, but space is limited in this thing. And chances are I'd have to run the coax along the frame parallel to a whole bunch of other electrical wires, which would make it susceptible to interference. I still might try it, I don't know, we'll see. Lastly, to be honest, this is probably an overly complicated solution to an otherwise simple problem. All we're trying to do is establish and maintain two-way radio communications. So if I were only trying to communicate with other riders, for example, I would probably just use the wireless mesh network built into communication intercom systems like this. The only reason I did what I did is because I wanted to establish comms with repeaters, other amateur radio operators, and some people in vehicles. And just to see if I could do it. So before you go diving off the deep end into something complicated, consider carefully your applications. After all, the simplest solution is often the best, and that just might be using the built-in mesh network on some of these intercom systems. Okay, if you're still with me, thank you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how I tackled the challenge of getting a radio installed on my motorcycle to conveniently run through my helmet. What do you think? Is there something that you would have done differently or better? Or have you seen other setups that you think I should try? Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful or at least interesting. Thank you as always for watching, and until the next time, this is Tom the Dilettante saying keep on tinkering and keep on learning. Have a good one.